What's up, guys? In this episode, we are going to cover some razor specific information about how certain size batteries fit in a SX and in an MX frame, which I have both here, and I'll demonstrate those. One thing I do want the viewer to know is that the batteries I'm showing here primarily are the Amorage batteries. They are not specific to razors. So if you have a Super 73 or a Sur-ron, all you got to do is contact Amorage with the specifications, the size, the dimensions that you're looking for, and they can get a battery made for you. But in this episode, it is going to be on the razor side and how these batteries fit, and we're going to touch on the dimensions of the batteries. And since I mentioned Amorage batteries, I am going to do a quick unboxing. It'll take 2 seconds, but I want you to see how the battery is going to come when it arrives at your door, and the packaging that they go through to put the battery in there so that it comes to your house undamaged. I will say though, this video is not sponsored by Amorage. I'm not making any money on this. They did not sponsor this video. This is just a video for the community, so you guys have a good idea and an understanding about what batteries fit in what frames, and if you do decide to get a bigger battery, what might have to be done to the frame that you decide to use.
I've had about a handful of these. I don't know, maybe more than a handful, maybe a couple handfuls, maybe a few handfuls, but I've never seen anybody do an unboxing on an Amorage battery. These are pretty popular in the razor scene right now, and this is just kind of how they come. So I wanted to show you guys how well they're packaged when you order it from China. So the battery comes obviously super packed full of foam on all sides. You got your battery leads right here. It comes with a charger in the box, and then the battery, which is inside here, and the rest of that's just foam. Don't even need that. So this is what we're focusing on right now. I'm careful when I cut this. And in the foam, it's also wrapped in this cellophane. This is a 72 volt battery here, and it's 130 amps continuous discharge, which in my opinion is perfect for the guy like, you know, myself, just riding these things around the neighborhood, to your buddy's house, to the bars, that sort of thing. It's got an XT60 charge and an XT90 discharge, anti-spark connections. So yeah, that's how it comes when you get yours in the mail.
All right, guys, so we're going to start off with the smallest battery and we'll work our way up. But what I mean by smallest is not least powerful, just smallest in dimensions. So this battery here is from Sur-ron company. It's a 76 volt, 20 amp hour battery. This is an MX frame, and I'm going to go through this video with the assumption that you have removed the tray in your MX frames. That's what most of us do. But anyway, this battery here, no modification to the tray. Only thing is the removal of that controller tray that comes stock. With the 76 volt batteries that you're gonna get, it almost drops in. It almost just drops right in. But one thing that you might have to do is come in here and widen these flanges a little bit just to allow this battery to fit in there. You don't need to trim or cut anything away from this battery tray. You might need to move these flanges down to allow this battery to drop in. Now, demonstrating that same thing on the SX frame, one of the differences in the SX frame that you'll notice in the MX is this backbone is more of a straight line as opposed to the MX. It's kind of more on a downward slant, which in my opinion, this frame is less advantageous for a bigger battery. 2 reasons. This frame comes down and it takes up room for your battery and your controller, and the shock mount tends to get in the way if you're going to run a taller battery. One of the benefits of running a SX frame is this backbone is more straight, and the shock mount isn't going to get in the way of your battery when you go to put the battery and the controller in here. So same battery, same tray, you're still going to have to widen these flanges on the bottom of the battery tray. This battery here is an Amorage battery. It is a 72 volt battery, 2170 cells, and if I didn't mention, 2170 cells, 2170. This 96 volt has Samsung cells. The Sur-ron battery, I'm not sure what those come with off the top of my head. And this battery back here is also 2170 cells, lithium cells. But this battery is 72 volts, it's 130 amps continuous, and it's a 24 amp hour battery. Let's check it out on the MX frame. So we put it in here and it just drops in. dropped right in. Got your discharge cables here. This battery is away from the shock mount. It fits right inside here, plenty of room for your shock. A little bit taller battery, but like I said, 72 volts, 24 amp hours, 130 amps continuous. And if it's gonna fit in this frame, it's definitely gonna fit in the SX frame. So, but just for demonstration purposes, getting this frame together for you guys. This frame's kind of a little beat up, but it also just drops right in. And then the shock mount, like I said, is kind of a moot point on this frame with this particular battery. The dimensions here on this battery, y'all, is right at 6 1/4, about 9 inches tall and 6 inches wide. And I'm bringing the Sur-ron battery out because people in this community run these Sur-ron batteries very often, and it's a good battery, and you can find them pretty cheap on the Craigslist or whatever people are using now, the Facebook Messenger, the Facebook Marketplace. But Sur-ron battery, not a problem. People run these things all the time. You just slide it right in here. I've seen people make brackets for these batteries like that. So this is the Sur-ron battery in the SX frame with no modification needed or anything done to this frame. We'll come over here to the MX frame. I will put the battery on its side, kick the bottom in there first, slide that dude in. Look at that. Enough room for your shock right here too. So Sur-ron battery, you can pick these up on the used market, 400 bucks, probably less, somewhere in there depending on where you're living in the country. But Sur-ron battery, good to go. All right, fellas, these batteries are very similar. One thing you'll notice is the difference in the casing. This is a 72 volt, 240 amp continuous, 40 amp hour battery with no case. So there's no metal case around this battery. It's just got a plexiglass case on the inside here. This is a 72 volt, 40 amp hour, 220 amp continuous battery. It's larger primarily because of the case. It takes up some space. The dimensions on this battery coming in is right at 6 1/8 and 9 inches from front to back. I call that front to back. And it is right at 9 7/8 inches tall. That's the cased battery. And in a second, we'll go over how each of these are going to fit in these frames. The plastic case, this battery is 9 1/2 long from front to back, 6 inches side to side, and right at 8 5/8 tall. So, demonstrating these batteries and how they fit, let's check it out. The SX, let's bring this SX frame in here. Knowing that this battery is smaller than this battery, let's just see how this is going to work. And again, we're going to have to, a lot of times when you're doing these frames and you're modifying these things, these flanges are gone. So these flanges, we cut these out just to accommodate a wider footprint on the battery. But without even cutting the flanges out, you can see that the battery fits in here. It'll ride nicely. Plenty of room for the shock in the back. And what you could do here is what I'd primarily do, and most people in the community, is mount your controller under this tube, or this down tube right here, or this, what would you call this? I guess a backbone of the frame. The controller would go here. Perfect. Fits perfectly, right? Coming over here, this is kind of where it gets a little sideways with the frames. Whoops. The MX frame, kind of how I was telling you about this tube here, not going to be very good for us in this example. So, as you can see, it's not going to fit. It would fit if this shock mount was back here, kind of like how the SX is, but this shock mount gets in the way. That's with the cased 40 amp hour battery. Now, with the 72 volt battery with no case, it would barely fit in here. This shock mount gets in the way again. So what I have done in the past, when I wanted to fit this battery in an MX frame, I come in here and I cut just enough off of that shock mount and I re-drill my hole just to bring my shock up slightly so I can squeeze that battery in here. And for me, I have gone to all metal encased batteries just in the event of a crash or a wreck. I want my battery to be protected, and I don't want that thermal runaway to happen on the way back from the bar. And being a firefighter, I can't have bikes that catch on fire. This is the biggest battery, the most powerful battery that I own at the time of recording this video. It's a 96 volt battery, it's 40 amp hours, and it's 380 amps continuous. So let's measure this guy out from the top. Left to right is right at 6 3/8. Front to back on this guy is 9 3/4. And then height wise, we're looking at about 11.5 inches tall on this bad boy. And this thing probably weighs, I'm not shitting you, I can curl about 500 pounds. And this battery probably weighs 490 pounds. No, not really. That would probably weigh about 50 pounds, I would say. After measuring the battery, will it fit? It's definitely not gonna fit in the MX frame, but there is hope on the SX frame. Let's just say that these flanges down here were off, and I could save myself a 1/2 inch there. Let's see if the height would fit. With the flanges gone, if we remove these, the battery would fit from top to bottom in here. The one thing that you would have to do is, if you can see here, I'll move the camera around, the frame where the shock mounts to the frame is hitting. So what you would have to do is probably notch that in order to get this battery to really fit. But you could make this 40 amp hour 96 volt battery fit in an SX frame with very little modifications. The one thing you have to figure out is where you're going to put your controller. Well, because 95 to 99% of the time, we put our controllers on the bottom of this tube. Here, in this case, this battery is going to suck up all that room. You're going to need to put the controller on top, on the back side of the battery, or on under the seat here, something like that. Something to think about. But yes, the battery would fit with some trimming. But anyway, guys, that's what I wanted to bring to you today. I hope that you gained some information, some knowledge, maybe some insight onto a battery, the size, and what you want to build your bike with, and the modification links that you want to take to make your bike work. If you found any use in the video, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel tremendously, and it doesn't cost anything. Have a great one, y'all. Bye.